Are you really making the memorial messier? A woman scoffed as the flag rope clicked in the shifting Atlantic wind. People nearby mocked him again, their voices pressing in like cold weather trying to slip under his collar. But when the breeze lifted a glint from the old Navy coin in his pocket, caught the light, and the air seemed to pause in a brief heartbeat, hush. Still quiet men leave echoes too, and Sam Whitlock had carried his longer than anyone knew. The morning light came in soft over the Atlantic, brushing the edges of Veterans Memorial Park, with a pale gold that made the granite names look almost warm. The wind carried the salt of the ocean and pushed dry leaves in uneven swirls across the walkway. Sam Whitlock bent to gather them with the slow steadiness of a man who'd learned long ago not to rush what didn't need rushing. He moved the broom in a quiet rhythm, bristles whispering against the stone. To anyone passing by, it looked like an old habit more than a job, just a 62-year-old man keeping busy on Veterans Day morning. The flag above him snapped sideways for a moment, before settling again, and the breeze shifted, as if deciding which direction it preferred. A woman in a bright windbreaker stopped short near the central monument. "Sir," she said, waving her phone as though filming proof you're making this place look messier than it was. Sam paused, lifting the broom a little. "Just clearing the walkway, ma'am." "Well, it doesn't look like it," she muttered, already turning away. Before Sam could answer, footsteps clicked across the brick. Ellen Browning appeared with a clipboard hugged tight to her chest, a pen already uncapped, posture stiff as courthouse marble. "Excuse me," she said, tone sharp enough to cut cold air. "Are you scheduled for morning maintenance? I don't see your name on the roster." Sam straightened, brushing dust from his sleeve. "Just helping get it ready for the ceremony later." "That's not what I asked." Ellen tapped the board. "Name." He hesitated long enough for the wind to tug lightly at his jacket. As it moved, a sliver of something metallic peeked from his pocket, just the curved edge of an old Navy coin that caught a blink of sunlight before settling back into shadow. A boy's voice came softly from behind Ellen. Grandpa Caleb whispered, tugging his grandfather's sleeve, eyes still fixed on Sam. "He's sweeping real gentle, like he doesn't want to scratch the stone." Several people nearby turned, curiosity shifting into the sort of watchful silence that makes a person shrink without meaning to. Sam lowered his eyes, not out of guilt, but because too many stares at once had a weight of their own. "I just want the place looking right," he said. "Today matters." Ellen didn't seem to hear the tone, only the words. "Intent isn't the issue. Procedures exist for a reason." She scribbled something onto her clipboard with a firm stroke. "And if you're not assigned, then this counts as an access violation." Caleb's grandfather murmured, "Let's keep walking, bud," and pulled the boy gently away, but the child kept glancing back over his shoulder. The breeze changed again, brushing loose leaves past Sam's boots. But the breeze kept shifting, skimming against the marble like it was trying to read the names etched there. Sam stepped aside as Ellen tore off a small yellow notice and pressed it onto the maintenance post beside him. The adhesive cracked sharply in the cool air. "This will be recorded," she said, tightening her grip on the clipboard. "You're now listed under unauthorized activity within memorial grounds." Sam gave a small nod. He picked the broom up again, slower this time, as if testing whether the moment would pass quietly if he did. But people were still watching. And Ellen, without looking at him again, clicked her pen shut and wrote one last line under his name. "Violation logged." Maple Street Cafe smelled of warm biscuits and dark roast, the kind that lingered in the air, even when the morning rush had thinned out. The bell over the door chimed as Sam stepped inside, brushing a bit of wind from his sleeves. He didn't look around, just headed for the counter, hoping a cup of coffee might settle the echo of the voices from earlier. but the whispering reached him before he reached the register. "See him," someone muttered near the pastry case. "That's the fellow from the memorial." "He's not even staff," another replied. "Sweeps like he's trying to look important." Sam kept his eyes on the menu board, though he'd ordered the same thing every visit for 3 years. The hum of cafe chatter pressed close like an invisible hand on his back. He paid, took his cup, and nodded to the barista, who offered a tight smile before looking away. Caleb was there with his grandfather, at a corner table, stirring hot chocolate. The boy's gaze flicked toward Sam as he passed. Something small slipped from Sam's jacket when he reached for a napkin, a folded scrap of paper that fluttered onto the tile. Caleb hopped down to grab it before the breeze from the open door carried it off. The page was covered in little arrows and notes. "Grandpa," he whispered, "it's wind stuff." Sam turned, noticing the boy holding the sheet. "Thank you," he said gently, taking it back and tucking it deeper into his pocket. "What's it for?" Caleb asked, eyes wide with honest curiosity. "Just helps me read the day," Sam said. He touched the brim of his cap and slipped outside again, leaving behind the low ripple of speculation rising in his wake. The air outside carried more bite now, a sharper edge pushing off the Atlantic. Sam made his way back toward the memorial, coffee warm in his palm. The park was filling with volunteers setting up folding chairs and arranging flowers for the noon ceremony. Ellen was already there. "Stop," she called sharply, as Sam approached a display of fresh wreaths along the walkway. "Those have been placed correctly. Do not move them." Sam rested his coffee on the stone ledge and bent toward one of the wreaths, noticing how a swirl of wind kept tugging its ribbon toward the center path. "The breeze is shifting," he said. "If it picks up, these might scatter toward the procession lane." "I just thought, no need to guess," Ellen cut in. "They were approved as is." Sam kept his posture steady, though the wind nudged harder now, rustling the greenery. When he leaned closer to secure a loose ribbon, the edge of the navy coin in his pocket glinted brighter than before. A couple passing by noticed it. "He looks like he's daydreaming," one of them remarked. "Probably doesn't even know where he is." Sam didn't answer. He straightened, letting his eyes drift toward the open ocean. Waves flashed white where the sun hit them, and the flag above the central pillar twitched and strained as though trying to speak. Still, the flag kept twitching sideways. Ellen crossed her arms. "Please step back from the wreaths. I don't want to file another note." Sam nodded once and stepped aside. The wind paused like it was holding its breath, then surged again in a sudden, unexpected push. A hollow metallic tremor ran down the memorial's front beam. People looked up. The nameplate at the entrance shivered against its mountings, just enough to catch everyone's attention. A couple of volunteers gasped and hurried closer, staring at the slight, unnatural sway. Sam remained still, watching the plate settle, then shift again under the gust. His coffee cooled in his hand as he measured the wind with his eyes the way other men might measure time. Somewhere behind him, a spoon tapped nervously against a mug inside the cafe, and a gull's cry swept over the rooftops toward the sea. The breeze rose once more, and the memorial sign gave another subtle, uneasy rattle. The wind carried a new sound across the park, metal straining against metal. Several heads turned at once toward the tall entrance sign of the Veterans Memorial. The plate trembled in its frame, swaying just enough to draw uneasy murmurs from the volunteers setting up chairs. Ellen was the first to react. "Someone call maintenance," she snapped, clutching her clipboard like it was a life raft. A volunteer shook her head and held up her phone. "They're tied up on the South Seawall project," she said. "No one can get here in time." Another gust spiraled through the courtyard, whipping loose programs off the table and tugging at the edges of the wreaths. Sam stepped forward almost without thinking, instinct guiding him more than certainty. Caleb trailed behind him, gripping the hem of his grandfather's coat, eyes wide. Sir Ellen shouted, taking a few rushed steps toward him. "You're not authorized to enter that area. I already documented this once today." Sam stopped just short of the sign's base. He kept his eyes on the way it pitched forward, then drew back. "If that board comes down during the service," he said calmly, "it could hit the front line of the parade." Several onlookers scoffed. "There he goes again," a man muttered, "acting like he's the only one who knows anything. Always makes a scene," someone else added. Sam didn't respond. The wind tugged at his jacket, pulling the fabric aside for a moment. Sunlight glinted off the smooth metal surface of the navy coin tucked beneath the worn lining. Caleb's gaze caught the flash instantly. He froze, staring not at the coin itself, but at the expression on Sam's face as he studied the shifting air. Something quiet clicked inside the boy, a recognition he didn't yet have the words for. Another curl of wind swept over the memorial grounds. Sam lifted his chin slightly, looking past the sign toward the shoreline. The waves were cresting from an odd angle, foam sweeping sideways instead of straight in. Above them, the flag on the central pillar strained sharply to the east. He breathed in, gauging the weather the way someone else might read a clock. Then the gust hit harder. It tore between the granite pillars like it had been waiting for the precise moment, rattling the nameplate with a deep, metallic shudder. A couple of volunteers jumped back. One covered her mouth. "Oh my, look at that hinge," she whispered. The plate jerked again, harder this time. A sharp clank echoed through the courtyard as the lower left hinge wrenched out of alignment. People backed away as leaves and paper programs scattered across the stone in quick, panicked circles. Caleb moved closer to Sam, gripping his sleeve. "Is it gonna fall?" Sam didn't answer right away. He studied the angle of the board, the tension in the bolts, the pattern of the gusts rolling in from the water. The breeze that earlier shifted in small, indecisive flicks now came in determined pushes. Ellen stood rigid, eyes darting from her clipboard to the trembling sign. Anyone secure that? We can't have a hazard during the ceremony." Another metallic creak tore loudly through the air. The plate snapped forward an inch, then rocked back as though deciding whether to give way entirely. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the gulls circling overhead seemed to pause. And then, in one long, breathless moment, the entrance sign lurched forward, wrenching free of its lower mount, just enough to hang crooked, caught by the last bolt clinging to the corner. Gasps rippled through the park. People stumbled back from the base, hands lifted to shield themselves from what they feared might come next. The metal swung slightly in the wind, a heavy pendulum teetering on the edge of disaster. The wind pushed hard across the courtyard, now carrying the sharp scent of salt and the clatter of loose branches rolling along the stone. Volunteers backed away from the crooked memorial sign, unsure whether to step forward or flee. Sam watched the sway of the plate, the angle of the last hinge, and the way each gust tested its hold. He set the worn broom gently against the pillar. Then he stepped past the tape marking the restricted area. No one tried to stop him at first. They only stared as if uncertain whether the quiet older man they'd doubted all morning truly meant to walk straight toward the hazard. Ellen finally found her voice. "Sir, stop right there," she said, taking a step after him. "You can't go past that line. I'm serious." But the crowd was already watching her as much as him, their attention pressing on her the way cold protocol sometimes presses on a person's ribs. Ellen hesitated, caught between rules and the growing realization that something larger was unfolding. Sam reached the tilted plate. He pressed his hand lightly against its surface, not to hold it up, but to feel the pressure and rhythm of the wind moving behind it. The metal hummed beneath his palm. He leaned closer just enough to see the strain on the final bolt, then moving with the steady confidence of someone who had once worked on machinery that could cost lives if mishandled. Sam adjusted the angle of the board. He nudged the base a few inches and shifted his weight, bracing it so the gust would pass through instead of against it. The motion was practiced almost instinctive, like he had done it on some deck under worse conditions thousands of times before. A hard gust tore across the courtyard, carrying sand and leaves. Sam lowered his shoulder, letting the wind hit him first so the sign wouldn't catch the full force. Someone in the crowd murmured, "How does he even know what to do?" A deep voice answered from behind them, "Let him finish." The words rolled over the gathering like a low tide returning to shore. People turned. Standing just beyond the outer circle was a man with broad shoulders, silver hair cut neat at the collar, and a dark navy coat buttoned against the wind. The ribbons on his chest were subdued with age, but unmistakable. The retired admiral stepped forward, boots sounding firm against the stone. His eyes never left Sam as he approached. "Chief Whitlock," he said, voice catching. "Is that really you?" Sam glanced back only briefly, offering the smallest nod. The admiral reached out and rested his hand against Sam's jacket, his fingers brushing aside the worn fabric until the navy coin was fully visible in the sun. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. "This man," the admiral said, raising his voice so every volunteer, every onlooker, every doubter could hear, "kept our deck alive during the storm of '89. We owe him our lives." Silence washed over the memorial. Ellen stood frozen, clipboard limp at her side. Around her, the crowd shifted from confusion to realization, their eyes settling on Sam, with a weight that held him more firmly than any hand. Every eye pinned him in place, not by force but by recognition, long overdue. But Sam just lowered his gaze. The wind softened for a moment, the flag snapping twice before settling in a steady line. The admiral stepped in close, leaning toward Sam's ear. His voice dropped to a near whisper, something meant only for those who had once stood beside him on steel decks and trusted him with their lives. He spoke a single quiet sentence, one only a sailor, only a fellow chief would understand. And Sam closed his eyes as the words reached him. The courtyard slowly returned to motion after the admiral's words, though no one quite knew how to resume what they had been doing before. The crooked nameplate hung there now, steadied by a pair of volunteers who worked carefully under Sam's quiet instructions. The breeze eased into a gentler rhythm, brushing the edges of the flags instead of yanking them sideways. Ellen stepped forward at last. The clipboard she'd clung to all morning dangled helplessly at her side. Her voice trembled when she tried to speak the first time, so she swallowed and tried again. I was wrong," she managed. Her gaze dropped before rising again to meet Sam's. "I misjudged you. I'm sorry, Chief." The title landed softly, almost unsure of itself, as if she wasn't sure she had the right to say it. The admiral placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We all get things wrong now and then," he said. "Owning it is what matters." A few steps away, an older veteran with a faded ball cap walked up holding Sam's broom. He offered it with a respectful nod. "This place stays clean every Veterans Day because of you," he said. "Has for years. Some of us noticed even when others didn't." Sam accepted the broom but kept his eyes on the sign, still assessing the bolts, still thinking of what needed to be done before the ceremony. Caleb moved beside him, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. "You rid the wind better than our weather channel," the boy said with a small grin. Sam let out a quiet breath that might have been the beginning of a smile. "Just doing my small part," he said. People gathered closer, not crowding, just forming a natural circle around him, the way a community leans in when it realizes someone has been carrying a load alone for too long. Volunteers, townsfolk, veterans in different shades of blue and green jackets, they all shifted into an easy agreement without anyone giving the order. "We should reset the nameplate," someone suggested, "and add something underneath," another added. "A dedication, maybe." The Admiral nodded. "A subtitle," he said. "Something fitting." Caleb's grandfather pointed to the base. "How about quiet service?" A murmur of approval spread through the group. "Let's do it," Ellen said, wiping her eyes quickly before anyone could comment on it. Together. Tools appeared, hands lifted, and suddenly the work became communal, measured, deliberate, almost reverent. Sam remained near the center, offering guidance when asked, stepping back when he wasn't needed. The Admiral watched with folded arms and a soft pride. Still, the breeze softened. A sense of calm settled in, warm in a way that had little to do with the sun. The crowd hummed with low conversation, a few light laughs, the scrape of tools against metal, and the rhythmic thud of a hammer securing the new brace. Someone set Sam's broom aside so it wouldn't get knocked over. Even the flag seemed to flutter more cheerfully now, no longer fighting the wind. When the final bolt slid into place, a quiet satisfaction passed through the group. The plate hung straight again, shimmering faintly in the afternoon light. A volunteer squinted at the empty space beneath it. "We can add the subtitle plaque tomorrow morning," she said. Before the main ceremony, the mayor, who had arrived midway through the repairs, stepped forward with an approving nod. "Actually," he said, lifting his voice just enough for all to hear, "I think we should make a moment of it. A proper one." He turned toward Sam. "How would you feel about a small ceremony tomorrow morning?" he asked. "Just before the parade steps off." People looked from the mayor to Sam, waiting. Even the Admiral shifted slightly, as if hoping for a yes. The breeze rolled gently across the courtyard, carrying the soft applause of leaves rustling in the trees, the distant call of a gull, and the warmth of a community ready to recognize what it had overlooked for far too long. The sun rose clean and bright over Veterans Memorial Park, laying a warm streak of gold across the newly polished stone. Flags lined the walkway, their edges lifting in the soft morning breeze. Volunteers had come early, placing chairs in neat rows and brushing away the last traces of yesterday's commotion. The memorial looked renewed, as though the whole town had taken a breath together and exhaled something grateful. Sam walked slowly toward the entrance with the Admiral at his side. The ground was still cool underfoot, and the air held that quiet, respectful hush that comes just before a ceremony. Where the crooked sign had once hung, a new plaque now rested beneath it, its surface gleaming in the early light. "In quiet service, Chief Samuel Whitlock." Sam paused in front of it. The words were simple, carved without flourish, but they carried a weight that settled gently into his chest. Beneath the dedication, encased behind a small glass frame, lay the Navy coin he'd carried for so many years, its edges worn smooth from time and storms and steady hands. He didn't reach for it. He only looked. The Admiral stepped closer, folding his hands behind his back. "They got it right," he said, voice low, as if speaking to the air as much as to Sam. "Took them long enough, but they got it right." Sam breathed out slowly. The morning wind brushed past them, lifting the corner of his collar. Footsteps approached from behind as more townsfolk arrived, settling into their seats, whispering quietly. The Admiral turned to him. "Welcome home, Chief." The words were soft, but they carried the full weight of memory and years, and the quiet understanding of men who had weathered the same kind of storms. Sam nodded once. "Feels good to be home." Caleb hurried up beside him, both hands gripping a sheet of paper he had smoothed carefully, at least a dozen times. It was the wind map Sam had dropped earlier, the little arrows and notes now smudged along the creases. "I kept this safe," Caleb said. "I'm going to hold it the way you do. Read the day right." Sam looked down at the boy, seeing something steady and earnest in his eyes. "Keep it close," he said. "It's all in how you pay attention." Caleb nodded, folding the paper with exaggerated care before slipping it into his jacket pocket. "I will." From somewhere down the walkway, the soft pluck of an acoustic guitar drifted on the air, followed by the distant cry of gulls circling over the water. The breeze carried a hint of warmth as it moved through the flags, making them lift and fall in an easy rhythm. Sam lifted his eyes toward the ocean. The horizon lay calm, the waves steady, the sun rising just high enough to catch the tops of the flagpoles. Everything felt aligned in a way that didn't happen often, but when it did, you remembered it. Caleb tugged lightly at Sam's sleeve. "Are you ready?" Sam rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. "More than you know." The Admiral stepped forward to greet the gathering crowd. People rose from their seats, talking softly, sharing smiles that didn't need much explanation. The memorial's new plaque shone in the brightening light, the coin beneath it, catching a spark of sun before settling into its quiet place. The breeze shifted one last time, warm against Sam's face. "If this story moved you, share it forward."